Hello everyone, Kurt Holford here, and welcome back to another episode from Holford Labs. Today we begin our look at the armored sword section, and we look at the different postures that Fiore has laid out to us that is depicted, which once again is a nod back to several different elements within his manuscript. Most notably right here is how we're starting to see other positions like the 6 dissimilar guards that we saw before in the sword of two hands, as well as remembering some of the values that we had within the abrazare sections. And we'll look at all those parts together here and look at some of the plays that may be possible from this position. But before we do that, please, if you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, and share with a friend. And if you're a regular viewer and subscriber, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, everybody, please leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and considerations. I want to grow this channel, and it's not possible without viewers like you. So, again, please, welcome, join us. And with that being the case here, let's get into it.
Okay, so this week here we're going to start off with looking at the armored structures. But the first one is depicted from the Getty called Posta Breve la Serpentina, so the short serpent, if you will, which appears as this. Just like we did with the sword and two-hand section, we're going to talk about some of the abrazare positions that come from this, and as far as to make this posture. But also, but also like how the mechanics might shift a little bit because of the considerations of armor. And that may not be for this one, but it certainly will be with other ones as well. So let's talk about Posta Breve la Serpentina. Is that essentially we're looking at the posture of Portiferro from abrazare. It's relatively easy to see right off the bat here. And again, the defensive postures from this position is quite evident, like we said last week, because again, if I'm sitting here like this, my arm is positioned so I'm protected against a shot, right? So one thing about this right here, I don't think the short serpent is limited to just this grip where I have the thumbs inboard. I think it could be either or of this. And again, that's going to be dependent. Remember, if you think about the 6 dissimilar guards, I think that this position right here is going to be dependent upon, do you want longer range of this, or are you talking about a shorter range? So that's one of the pieces about this right here, especially when it comes down to making this. As far as this position right here is concerned, Fiore is he honestly talks very little about all the techniques that come out of it, except for if I give you a thrust, you know it's made its mark on you. If we look at the position of where this sword is at, we can tell right off the bat, just by looking at me, that this is a spot where if I receive a blow, it might be just something right here to go right into the jab, into the lower groin, up into the throat, into the arms. It costs next to nothing to jab this shot in, because the reality is it is very quick to come back and forth with this, and I don't have a lot of instability with it, because to go forward with this, if I just shift my arms back and forth, I can thrust and come right back. Very quick, very easy, very lethal. And because the sword has got weight instead of my arm, I can almost use this position to get out of the way. Because I'm in the position right here of being like very protected up, once again, we see how my arm harness is protecting me. Depending on how I grip here, there's all sorts of fashion. Yeah, my arm's open, but you have to get around that. So I might be here, I might be here. Point being is, in this position, I have lots of opportunities. I can thrust in. It's very easy, and if I have spoilers on, I have a helmet, I can move in a way that allows me to be protected against incoming shots and to hit areas that will deter somebody and go into other close quarter abrazare considerations. So that's one of the big things about this position right here that's very important. A lot of the positions when it comes down to armor, they're not complicated, but that's also because a lot of the movements that we have in this are very dynamic, but they're also limited because of how armor fits on the body and how that affects our cardiovascular, our breathing, and everything else, especially when you talk about wearing extra weight. So those are big parts right there to look at this as far as this position. Let's talk about some other things right here about how we might make this position, but also some additional considerations that come from this that are very important. So if this is the short serpent, right? If we remember before, we had the position where the serpent had gripping of the pommel, like such. It doesn't take much for me to go back and to give a thrust out of this right here and to jab somebody that's in armor, right? If I'm like this, or like this with my lead hand, it costs nothing. I would also like to say that I can thrust lower this right here just by going thrust, thrust. I have very easy actions, but I also have a defensive action in front. I get to play with this a little bit here because, again, when we start talking about other later sources, you'll see positions like this. If I'm like this and I let go of it, I have a defensive wall here. My arm is still up. So I have this protection right here. So I might stick somebody, come up, or I might go like this, catch it, and come back. I have ways to be able to protect myself a little bit at an extension because of in my case, my left arm is extended out towards my opponent. So that's a big piece about this right here, is that this position can transition. Other things that come to this is the grip. Depending on the type of sword that you have, I can very easily find the pommel and the crossguard. I can feel my crossguard go right to the metal portions of this, and I can feel the pommel as it goes to here. So I can shift back and forth relatively easily out of that combat guard. Making this position, we might be hearing this, popping right back up. Sword offline, pass back right into that short circle. I can be in some of the other positions, come back out. I might strike in, turn forward into this. There's all options. The big thing right here is taking how we might shift and catch and move to create those opportunities. Really depends about where our ending position is going towards and why we might be taking it. If it's a lighter target, it makes sense to strike like this and then to pull back. Remember, we're not going to slide the blade. Just come back and grab hold of it. Palm to flat. It's going to allow more opportunities here to use the sword in its function.
So as you can see with the video, once again, we look at the postures we saw within abrazare and how they come into different important parts that allow for us to build out into different kind of concepts. A big part about the Posta Breve la Serpentina to me that I actually really didn't think too much about until filming all of this is that the word serpentina, the serpent, and it made me think about the nature of what kind of attack is coming out of this. And I don't think I said this in the video itself, but I wanted to capitalize on this because one of the things about this posture that I oftentimes, always saw is like, oh, I'm right here, I'm going to thrust out with this. Maybe the reason why these are called the serpent is because they strike fast. And like snakes, they strike and recoil. That kind of attack measure and mechanism, to me, actually makes a lot of sense, especially when you start talking about how the structures of, the weight of the body, once again, the funnel weight that we keep talking about, and some other considerations that come down to like, what am I going to try to do with this? And how long do I want to linger out there with somebody jamming down my arms? This isn't me, I'm going to break chainmail. And again, this might be one of the things right here where you're talking about probing and utilizing different types of attacks, or if you do hit it, it's a wounding shot that, one, really kind of sucks to have happen to you. It's not going to stop you, but it is going to cause something to shift the mind to protect wounds or to try to defend off or other things like that. The part about the Posta Breve la Serpentina, one of the things I talk about right here is like the grip of the forehand that aids to this. So I don't know about this right here. And I know there's images that show different things. And if I look at the manuscript right here, it's very difficult for me to see. Is he like this? Is he like this? I don't know. And honestly, I don't think Fiore cared because the reality is he's shown the ability to have this kind of a grip, which we know is in the Posta Bastarde. And we also know that he's shown this kind of grip with it, which is the serpent, the long serpent strike that we see within the sword in two hands section within the 6 dissimilar guards. This to me denotes that perhaps when we look at these postures and structures, it's important to remember that essentially we're trying to build out of these concepts to make things happen. Anatomically, like I said before, how we grip on this is stronger and tighter, but it also is shorter. And the armor, especially depending on what type of gauntlets you have on, I'm not always able to do full wrist rotations. So these types of shots are a lot shorter, but they're stronger in nature because of my arm structure. Going the other way, I can pop through very easily because I have the blade extended in my hands or into the same direction. It also exposes the hand, and as always, there's always trade-offs to this. Why is this important to look at? Because once again, the advice of Fiore states, look at the opponent, what positions do they take, and what are you doing? And those types of things right here, that constant evaluation of what you have, what's your availability, knowing where you can get hurt, is a very important piece when it comes down to the practice of armor, because once you get turned, it is very hard to be able to recover. And that's a huge part, especially with these plays that will be coming up later on within the armored sword section. So that's going to do it for this video right here. Please, like I said, leave a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. How do you see the positions of this? What are your thoughts on the word of serpentina? Is that something right that you've considered? Have you thought that perhaps also that when it comes down to this, it's about being strike, or maybe there's something I'm missing? Please educate me on what it is as well. Again, I have no idea if it was just intended to be able to talk about how you're coiling up and then shooting out, or if he meant it to be a quicker strike with this. I'm also curious what you thought about also when it came down to striking with two hands, going to one, and shifting out in different directions, because I do think that is a part of the armored fight, especially when you start talking about how some positions are good for within armor, the single hand sword, as well as others. So we'll keep on going with this right here as we go along with it. Very curious about all that. But until I see you, everybody, as always, please stay safe out there, train well, and fight on. I'll see you all soon.